Hello, welcome. We're so excited to be here with you today and play some instruments for you. Hope you're all having a good week at home. This is the Nance family living room. My name is Shannon Nance, and I'm a violinist with the Rochester Philharmonic Orchestra. Today, you're going to meet a few members of my family. I'll let them each introduce themselves in a couple of minutes, but I first want to tell you about some other families. We are the Nance family, but in the musical instrument world, there are 4 different families that all play together in an orchestra. I'm a member of the string family, and I play the violin. I'm going to tell you more about that in just a minute. The other family members, actually families in the orchestra, are the woodwind family, the brass family, and the percussion family. So let me first tell you about the violin. So all members of the string family have some things in common. We all have strings. We happen to have 4 strings, most of us. The violin is the smallest. There's a slightly bigger instrument that looks a lot like the violin called the viola. And then there's a cello that's quite a bit bigger, and they have to sit down to play it. And they have an end pin that sticks out of down here, and they hold it like this. And then there's the bass players, and they look like big cellos. And they also have to stand up to play their instrument, to reach around it. We all play our instruments with a second thing, which is a bow. So it's made out of wood, and it has horsehair on this side. And to get my violin to vibrate and make a sound, I pull the bow across the strings like this. So that's how I make a sound. I don't know if I can get close enough to the camera so you can see that vibration, but a vibration is a wiggly motion that the string makes. So let me play a little for you. You can hear that the violin plays very low, and it also plays very high. That's a little bit of a piece that was written a couple hundred years ago by a very famous composer named Tchaikovsky. And you may have heard some other Tchaikovsky music because a lot of people have heard or seen the Nutcracker, and Mr. Tchaikovsky wrote that music. So now I want to introduce you to a couple members of the woodwind family. So I think first you're going to meet my daughter, Bridget.
Hi. So, as she said, my name is Bridget, and I play the oboe. So, the oboe is a double reed instrument. And what that means is that how we make a sound is we take this little reed, if you can see that. It's super small, and it's 2 pieces of a cane tied together, and we blow through it, and there's a tiny little opening in there. So, without the actual oboe, this is the sound it makes. So it's pretty silly, but when we put it in the oboe, it makes a better sound. So that's what an oboe sounds like. It's made up of 3 parts, and there are a couple different instruments in the oboe family. There's an English horn, there's the heclophone, there's the bass oboe, the piccolo oboe, oboe d'amore, but right now we're just going to look at the normal oboe. So one special thing about the oboe is that it tunes the orchestra every single rehearsal. So it plays an A, and the whole orchestra tunes to the 1A from the oboe. So now I'm going to play an A, and because it takes so much air, we're just going to see how long I can hold the A. You might see me turn a little red. Let's see. took a lot of air.
Wow.
But so we do that every single rehearsal. But the oboe also plays some real music too. So this is just a little solo from a piece by this composer called Stravinsky, and he wrote some cool music. But here's one of the oboe solos. And that's the oboe. Thanks for listening. Next, you're going to see another member of the woodwind section, a flute.
Hi, I'm Brianna, and I play the flute. So the flute is also a member of the woodwind family, but unlike our sisters or brothers in the family, we don't have reeds, so we make a sound very differently than the oboe would. Instead, we blow across this little opening, and our air is our source of our sound. It's what the bow is, creating the vibrations. Our air creates the vibrations within the flute. So what I can do is I just blow across, and then I use the keys to change notes. And so we do that by changing our airspeed, so we can do the same note, though it's a little out of tune. So that's where the keys come in. And so that's basically just how you make a sound on the flute. Like the oboe, it's 3 sections, so it's convenient for travel, carrying to and from school. And so I'm just going to play a little bit from a piece called The Swiss Shepherd by Morlocki. So I hope you enjoyed that. Since we are the members of the same family, we play together quite a lot. And so Bridget and I are going to play a duet for you now. And now our dad is going to come and introduce the final member that we have with us today, the brass family.
Hello. So first of all, we'll say there's 2 other members of the woodwind family, right, that aren't
Yes.
here today. We have the clarinet, which uses 1 reed to play, so it's a little bit different than the oboe. And then there's the bassoon, which also uses double reeds. So it's sort of like the oboe, but it's a lot bigger, maybe like this big. So, and it's kind of the bass section of the woodwind. And we have the contrabassoon, which is a really big bassoon, and we have the piccolo flute, which is the very small flute. So there's a lot of different instruments also in the woodwind family that all sit in a row in the orchestra and play together. If you watch a video on YouTube, you can see the orchestra playing together. So my family is the brass family. And so I have my trumpet here, and the trumpet is the soprano member of the brass family, so we play the highest notes. And I'm also sort of like a double reed instrument, except my reeds are my 2 lips. So I go like this. Except nobody really wants to hear that. But if I do that in the mouthpiece, it's so much better. It sounds like this. Wasn't that so much better? So much better. I think it's a lot better. But I can also play higher and lower on the mouthpiece by making my lips tighter and looser. Awesome, right? I know. The trumpet is one of the great instruments. So when I put it in my trumpet, it amplifies that kind of obnoxious buzz and focuses it into a real sound. It sounds like this. And then I can go up and down with different airspeeds, sort of like the flute, without changing anything else. I can go. And so you've heard a lot of bugle calls that use just that, the open instruments. So there I'm playing and moving around just by using my lips. Now, I need to play different notes, so I also use the valves. And the valves, all they do is they make the instrument longer. So if I press my middle valve, it goes down a half step. My first valve is 2 half steps. And I can combine them. Now, strangely, my third valve is equal to those two. So I can go. And get all my notes. Now, of course, as you probably are aware, the trumpet is the best instrument in the world.
What?
And the reason, hey, what? The reason that's the case is because that's the instrument that Star Wars is. So if you love the trumpet, you love Star Wars. If you love Star Wars, you love the trumpet. Now, what's interesting is I play a lot of different trumpets in the RPO. So this is my B-flat trumpet. If you play in band, you play the B-flat trumpet. Mostly in the RPO, though, I play my C trumpet. So I take my mouthpiece out and I put it in a different horn. C trumpet's a little shorter. Okay, that's a C trumpet. I also have the C cornet. So it's a little bit of a different shape. You can see it's kind of curvy. It's a little bit mellower sounding. It's used to play kind of fun. So it kind of goes around kind of fast. That's the cornet. We also have the flugelhorn, which is a big kind of round instrument that sounds a little bit more like a French horn. Very common in jazz. It's got a very beautiful kind of mellow sound. And then the very farthest away from the flugelhorn is my little short piccolo trumpet. Piccolo means small in Italian. So the trumpet in this one is very short, very small, plays kind of high and kind of bright. So it gets up there. We use this for some Baroque instruments and for some solos in the orchestra. And also some Stravinsky has some music for piccolo. What Bridget played some Stravinsky. So that's the last or the third group. So you have trumpet, you have French horn, you have trombone, and you have tuba. And you also have euphonium, which is sort of a smaller version of the tuba. And those are the brass instruments in the orchestra. You also have Wagner tuba, which isn't as common, but it's also a brass instrument in the orchestra. So the brass family is the third family. The fourth family is the percussion family, and that's any instrument that you can strike to make a sound, or shake, or rattle, or you can play the piano. That's a percussion instrument. The harp is also in the keyboard percussion family. Marimba, cymbals, snare drum, bass drum, timpani, lots and lots and lots of percussion instruments floating around. So I'll turn it back over to Shannon.
Yes. Okay, so this has been a lot of fun, and we thought that we would end today by kind of summing up what we talked about, and then we have a piece we're going to play that is for all 4 instruments that you met here today. So to sum up, in an orchestra, we have 4 orchestra families, 4 musical families. We have the string family, we have the woodwind family, the brass family, the percussion family. And unfortunately, you didn't get to hear any percussion instruments today because we don't play percussion instruments in this family. I don't know what's going on. Well, that was fun. We don't usually play percussion instruments, but we thought we should pull a few out for today.
So for our last piece, we're going to play a piece by Johann Sebastian Bach, who's a very famous Baroque composer, one of the great composers of history. He lived from 1685 to 1750. So we just celebrated his 350th anniversary. I don't know. He's very old. And we're going to play a piece by Bach called Bach Brandenburg Concerto No. 2, which was written in 1721. So in March of 1721. So we just passed the 299th anniversary of that piece. And the solo instruments for that piece happen to be violin, flute, oboe, and trumpet. And so we're going to play the last movement of that. And there's also an orchestra part. We don't have the orchestra here because we're all separate right now. This is just our family. And I'm putting a little bag on the end of my piccolo trumpet so it's not quite so loud because we're in kind of a small space instead of a concert hall, and the trumpet gets a little bit over loud sometimes. So we hope you enjoy this last little bit of the Brandenburg Concerto. And you'll notice the trumpet part is very high because that's how Bach wrote his trumpet parts. But this is the end of the Brandenburg, and maybe we'll have Bridget give us an A so you can see how that works. Starts with trumpet. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.